want to check the connection settings
Who's
in
that?
the Google Home app.
Shut up, Google. Can't believe the audacity on here sometimes. We're back, baby. Jim Coventry, Connor Rowntree, Thursday Night Football, bringing that energy, bringing that heat that you guys love. Jim, how are we doing today?
Doing extremely well. It's Thursday night. We have another lemon, but I think we're going to have fun with this one.
Yeah, well, we have to, right? I mean, it's the World Series transferring over to the gridiron. You got the Phillies and the Astros going at it on the diamond, and now tonight you get the Texans hosting the Eagles. And this, the Eagles are virtually unstoppable. They made some moves at the trade deadline. They got Robert Quinn in from Chicago to tighten up that pass rush and really give them a little extra zest, if you will, on that defensive line. And Robert Quinn had 18.5 sacks last season, set a Bears record. And man, oh man, let's just, before we hop into Thursday night, Jim, let's trade deadline. What are your favorite moves from the deadline?
It was an interesting trade deadline, and it was a good one for Jeff Wilson because Jeff Wilson goes to Miami, and there's no transition time. It's the exact same running system he was in San Francisco. Elijah Mitchell's coming back, and obviously McCaffrey's the guy there. So Jeff Wilson, who looked like he may not have any fantasy value, he could be, honestly, the 1A to Mostert's 1B, because Mostert's been overworked because I don't believe Mike McDaniel had another option. Chase Edmonds didn't understand that system, couldn't run it. And so Jeff Wilson has been running very well this year. And so I think he's the 1A there, and he's going to have some serious fantasy value going forward.
Yeah, I absolutely love that breakdown. And, you know, it's pretty funny because it's that you just mentioned that Jeff Wilson name, because in one of my leagues, one of my buddies had traded for Jeff Wilson earlier in the season. And after the McCaffrey deal, he was like, well, I might as well just go cry under a bridge by myself for the rest of the season. I was like, yeah, you should. But not Jim Coventry. He's got you. Got a little support. Now, we'll jump into, one last thing. Chase Claypool is a Chicago Bear, Notre Dame Fighting Irish Canadian kid. Have a signed mini helmet from him right here. Boom. Yeah, I'm really excited about that, especially Roquan Smith leaving the Bears. Just everyone, quick disclaimer, was the worst breakup of my life. I've been in like 5 or 6 relationships. That I ate ice cream. I didn't leave this office. I didn't leave this studio for like a week. I just watched tape. He's still the background on my phone. Check this out. Roquan doing his thing in the 100-year jerseys. It's sad. I'm sad. All right, Thursday Night Football. Jalen Hurts. He's tearing up the NFL right now. Line on Monkey Knife Fight, 239.5 yards. Man, down from 250.5, Jim. That's what I'm going to ask you right off the bat here. Why is that line lacking? Is it just the lack of offensive capability that Houston has, so Hurts doesn't need to throw it?
You know, I always think, Connor, you know me, it's about game plan. And there's usually a very definitive game plan. Last week, I felt it was in the Eagles' best interest to attack the Steelers through the air, and they did that in the first half. Hurts ends up with 285 yards in that game. But in the 3 games prior, 240 or fewer. And if we look at this game, the Eagles have a massive mismatch on the ground because the Texans are one of the very worst run defenses in the league. And the Eagles have a punishing offensive line. And believe this or not, when Derrick Henry ran for over 200 yards last week, the Texans were stacking the box because they had no worries about Malik Willis. Well, you can't stack the box against the Eagles because they have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. So this game is going to be about the Eagles in exerting their will and running the football. And they're going to have such great success with it. And they probably get an early lead. Jalen Hurts is not going to throw the ball very much in this game. The only way he gets to an over is if there's like 280-yard touchdowns, and the odds of that are fairly small. So I don't think there's much of a chance here for him to have more. So he's a definite less for me.
Well, let's look at the last couple of weeks for the Eagles, right? Obviously, he went off last week, but in the 3 games before that, he was not well under. He threw 239 one of them, but in the other 2 games, he was well under 240 yards. So the Eagles are as much as it's fly Eagles fly, it truly is run Eagles run, and I'm completely with you on that. And I think, yeah, you hit the nail on the head, everything in the projected game script. And then, yeah, I'm just the less is definitely the play. The Eagles are going to run the football, and that's where they have success. On the other side of the ball, Davis Mills has a tough task. The Eagles have given up the fourth fewest yards and points this season in the NFL. And with the Brandon Cooks situation, this is what I'm very interested in. Any Brandon Cooks line, I'm taking less on. I'm taking the under on anything with Brandon Cooks' name on it because I see how disgruntled that man is. He was begging for a trade, and Houston just ignored him. Wow, that's going to be a tough situation. Davis Mills, less. I know of necessity, he's going to need to throw the ball, but this isn't even going to matter. This game is going to be over by the second half.
I'm completely with you, Connor. And I don't think it's a lock that Brandon Cooks plays in this game at all. He missed the last 2 days of practice. There is a lot of acrimony right now. And Nico Collins is out for this game as well. So if they're going down to Chris Moore as their top receiver, good luck. Now, the Texans, in terms of pass protection, they're a below average unit. And the Eagles, it's a double dip. They're top 5 in pass coverage with 3 great corners. Well, Vontae Maddox is a great corner. He's a very good one. And then the outside corners, we have Darius Slay and James Bradbury. And the Eagles are top 4 in pressure rate per Pro Football Focus. That's before Robert Quinn was added. And quarterbacks, they're just averaging 206 yards against them. So realistically, it's going to be Mills throwing for under. He's been under 180 yards in 3 different games this year, and it's going to be another one here. He's going less.
Yeah, well, his line is now popped up to over 210.5 yards, Jim, on Monkey Knife Fight, currently live here. So there's been some action coming in against us, but like I'm with you. I was with the less when it was one. I saw a line today, I believe on PointsBet, it was 175, and I was still leaning towards the less.
Yes.
So it's just they're with what as soon as I looked into the Brendan Cook situation, you do a little digging on Twitter and you just look at his demeanor and his social media presence and lack thereof. It's tough to get behind Davis Mills when his best playmaker, probably the best skill position player, the best established skill position player in that offense, doesn't want to be there. Now let's hop into some wide receiver action here. Well, more about Philly skill position players, if you will. AJ Brown, 75.5 yards. He doesn't need it. They don't need it. So I'm going to take the less. That's a lot of yards. I know he's the number one guy. As Jim said, they can get it in one big play. It is more than doable. AJ Brown is your guy, but I'm taking the less. Just projected game script. You got to go with the projected game script. Less.
When Connor and I talk to everyone, we're talking about probabilities, and I see the same thing Connor does. They could be on their own 15-yard line, and A.J. Brown can catch a slant and go 85 yards for a touchdown. But the probability of that play is small. And like we've both been telling everyone, the Eagles are not going to be throwing the ball much here. Now, in terms of the Texans, they give up the 6th fewest fantasy points. Not that that's huge here to wide receivers, but they only give up like 10 catches a game to receivers. Well, why? Because teams run on them. They don't have to throw, and they've also played some weak passing offenses, but nonetheless, there's not a script here for that to happen. Now, remember, A.J. Brown has been, other than last week when he blew up against Pittsburgh, the prior 2 games, less than 70 yards. So there's a track record of him when they don't need to throw for him going under the yardage. So I agree with Connor. This is a less one here.
Yeah, and now we get to have some fun. This is Miles Sanders time. This is the guy that I think both of us want to talk about. He had another great showing against Pittsburgh last week. And I really like the evolution of Miles Sanders kind of into that third down, from that third down back into a 3-down back that we've seen this year, really mitigating Boston Scott in that backfield. I love what Miles Sanders is doing. Massive respect. His line opened up on Monkey Knife Fight, 75.5 yards, now up to 80.5 yards, Jim. And I'm still screaming, more. Cue the Billy Idol.
Love Billy, and what a great song, The Rebel Yell. Now, Sanders is getting to that tough line because remember, he only gets 15, 18 carries a game. The only time he got more was in the monsoon against Jacksonville when he went for like 27 carries, but they manage his touches. But that 15 is like borderline to get there because the Texans allow 5.75 yards per rush. You could just gash them on the ground all day long. And don't forget, we mentioned earlier that Philly offensive line is one of the best in the league. And we said also the Texans cannot stack the box because of the great receiving weapons that the Eagles have. So I still think if Sanders only gets 17, 18 carries, I think it's enough to go over 80. So he could get 90 or 100 yards on those small amount of carries. Because again, we were not getting 25 out of him, but I'm going more as well.
Yeah, and you know what? He's so efficient with his touches. In week 1, we saw him, I believe it was 13 touches for 96 yards. Week 2, 17 touches for 80 yards. So right on that number. And as you said, I think it's a combination of two perfect storms. Miles Sanders is coming in and finding his game and finding his role in that Philadelphia backfield. And at the same time, Houston sucks. So let's go. I love the line. I'm taking the more on it. Sorry, Texan fans. I took you to win the World Series. So
yes.
you got that. We can talk about the unhappy Brandon Cooks. I love it. I'm just checking out the rundown. Obviously, even our producer, Brian Butt, knows what's going on. But Miles Sanders Brendan Cooks is unhappy. It even says unhappy. I love it. So his line is down from 60.5 receiving yards, Jim. You say he might not even play tonight. It's down to 49.5. Wow.
And it still has to be less. Now, again, if he doesn't play, I don't know how that impacts this, but regardless, Philly gives up like only 128 receiving yards to wide receivers. And if Cooks plays, he's the only guy they really have. And again, Bradbury, Slay, Avonte Maddox in the slot, there's nowhere he can go where they have a positive matchup for him. And with that Philly pass rush and the poor offensive line blocking, there's no time for downfield passes. And with the way their safeties rally, good luck getting yards after the catch. So yeah, I mean, the odds of getting over 30 yards if he plays are tiny. He's a less.
Yeah, and let's just look at this now, Jim. The line here on Monkey Knife Fight, 4.5 receptions. Wow, that's a lot of grabs for a guy that might not be on the field. 5 grabs. So I'm taking the less on the 4.5 reception line. Jim, I'm assuming, yeah, I see the head nod. We can move on to Dameon Pierce because this is a good one because I think Jim and I have beat the dead horse with a stick enough that Houston's gonna have problems moving the football, and Philadelphia is actually, if you're gonna get them, they're gettable on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is they won't be able to. Houston's not keeping pace with them. They can show a little respect. They can show off Dameon Pierce, and Dameon Pierce at 64.5. Look, if this was a dog-eat-dog game, a tight game, I would take the less, but it's not going to be one. More on Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, I like your call here. Were you still saying more, or did I cut you off?
No, I was done.
Yeah,
Queued you up, baby.
So look, the Texans have no choice to run as much as they can to shorten the game, especially early, and hope to keep it within 20 points. Now, Philly's not going to respect the passing game, so they're going to attack the run. Now, one little thing that helps Pierce here, Jordan Davis, the defensive tackle, is on the injured reserve, and he's been a very good run stopper as a rookie. Now, the Eagles give up 4.89 yards per carry, so you can get to them on the ground, like you said, and that Davis loss hurts. Now, Pierce, 90 or more yards in 3 of his last 4 games. He only had 35 last week, and it was really one of his only tough matchups of the year. So we're worried. But here's what I think, and here's why I'm with Connor on this one. I think in the second half, the Eagles become disinterested, and we've seen them the whole year. They take their foot off the gas in the second half, and the Texans are not going to go away from the run. They're not going to put Davis Mills in the storm where he's having the defensive line just beating him up. So I think even if they're down 20 plus points, I think Pierce still runs and he gets enough to go more.
Yeah, I just, you said it much more articulately than I did. Boom. That's the breakdown, folks. Mic drop. Let's walk away. Just kidding. Time for a touchdown dance. Ha! It's awesome. I guess we could talk about Dallas Goedert. He was on the screen, but you could also save him for this very moment, this touchdown dance. Big target within the red zone, and if they're going to throw it, it's going to be him or Brown. So those are really the two options for me. But let's start it out on the ground. Both running backs. We talked about Miles Sanders. We need somebody from Houston. Again, this is one of those situations where we're doing the show with Dan, and he tried to take all Patriots on that Bears-Pats game. And it was like, oh, you got to have one. You got to just have one. So there's our one. We'll because we have to, we'll take Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, and I'm right with you. The same players, Miles Sanders, Dameon Pierce, and then Dallas Goedert's the one, the short touchdown pass, little play action at the goal line, just to get Hurts as one touchdown. You know, and he has games where he doesn't throw them, but he gets that one here. Now, if you want to get really, really cute,
okay,
Boston
I'm listening.
Scott in the second half could run into touchdown.
Wow.
I could see that because this game could get out of hand. And if they do, remember, everybody runs on the Texans. And so that would be getting really cute. But I think you don't deviate from what Connor and I are saying. You go with the three: Sanders, Goedert, Pierce.
Wow. I think we were more in sync this episode than in sync is on some of their tracks. I think we hit every single MKF line was the same. And then the touchdown dance was quite literally the exact same thing. Love that. I think there's good vibes coming in tonight, guys. It may not be the most entertaining game, but we make it fun for you here on Monkey Knife Fight. Now, Jim, here's the recap. Bally Play has this at -14 for the Eagles. It arguably could be more. How do you see this game going?
So the first thing, here's my betting advice, because the Eagles almost always take their foot off the gas in the second half. The first half line right now is -7.5 Eagles. And the Eagles have scored 20 or more points in the first half of all but one game. That is the bet, the first half Eagles spread. Now, the Texans, you'll say, well, the Texans have kept almost every game but one closer than that, but they've had a ridiculously easy schedule. That is the bet. I'm very nervous that the Eagles take them a little bit lightly on a short week. They take their foot off the gas in the second half. I don't like the big line that way, but again, first half line Eagles -7.5.
Absolutely love the little tidbit from you there. And yeah, here's another little one for you. Just Miles Sanders. I'm really excited about Miles Sanders tonight. I think he's going to go off after watching the tape, and I know what Derrick Henry can do. I respect him. I understand why they call him King Henry, but it was more than just him being great that showed on that tape. Guys missing assignments, guys missing holes, and just running backs gashing left and right. Absolutely love it. Jim, let me know and let all the fine people know at home where they can get
you can catch me on Twitter at Jim Coventry NFL. I do put up multiple threads a week with fantasy information by position, trying to give you some actionable advice there. The YouTube page for RotoWire, I do 3 to 5 videos a week. I do a live start sit stream every Sunday, 2 hours before kickoff. You can always catch me at rotowire.com and on Sirius XM Fantasy Channel 87, Saturdays 1 to 3 and Sundays 9 to 10 Eastern times, of course.
All right, before we go, Chase Claypool projection as a Chicago Bear, how does he fit into that offense?
So here's what I think. It's always tough for a new receiver to come into a new situation in the middle of a season without learning the offense, unless he's an alpha receiver that's going to command a ton of targets. However, the way the Bears are currently running their offense, getting Fields on the move, defenses have to have a little bit of nervousness and hesitation. So if they decide to use Claypool on some downfield routes, they can have some good connections. I see him as a boom bust fantasy play this year. I think he's the better bet to be a factor next year with a full training camp.
Absolutely love it. And look at Justin Fields, folks, 24 fantasy points last week. Just why not ask the pro while he's on the show? Folks, that's Jim Coventry. I'm Connor Rowntree. Enjoy the football.